Hello and welcome to Seance, brought to you by the Adventure Archive. My name is Ryan, and this is Sersa Victory, the prolific Deathtrap dungeon designer himself. How's it going, Sersa?
Oh, I'm doing okay. I'm very excited to be back in the mix with you talking about games.
Yeah, so Seance is our Deathtrap tomb design stream. Sersa, you're going to be leading the way. So, what exactly is Seance, and what's kind of our plan for this stream? Because this is definitely going to be more than one episode. What are we looking forward to here?
That's right. So the idea for Seance came out of a number of conversations that you and I have had, both on stream and off, about dungeon design. And one of the things, and I would love to hear your experience about this, but one of the things that I see a lot of DMs or adventure writers talk about is when they sit down to write an adventure, they don't really know where to start. And maybe they have a germ of an idea, or maybe they have like a cool monster or a cool room, but they don't really have a clear idea of what the process should be. And we've kind of touched on a couple of dungeon design principles in some of the streams that you and I have done in the past. We've talked about them one on one. And so the goal with Seance is to basically collaboratively build a traditional dungeon adventure in the style of something like Tomb of Horrors, right?
Right.
So something that's sort of deadly. I don't like the term old school, but a bit more classic. So less focused on
Right.
role playing and character development, and more on you have dungeoneers. They are trying to find treasure, kill monsters, dodge traps, those sorts of things.
Right. And a
So
bunch
we
of them
have a
die.
number of
Yeah.
exactly right. We have a number of episodes planned, and each one is going to focus on a different part of the dungeon design process. We have planned about 12 episodes for now. We may double up on some episodes, go longer, depending on one, how far we get, and two, if there's anything that the audience would like for us to talk about. Um, Tonight, what we're going to focus on is the theme of the dungeon. And I don't have the stream up with me now. Are you sharing the boards yet, or are we got those
Nope,
queued
I can
up?
kick over to that. We're just in the this
And
beautiful
then the
opening
little room?
screen that we designed together. I can kick over to the design stream though.
Sure. Uh,
All right. Yeah. There we go.
Perfect. So where we're gonna start, and this is where I start with every dungeon, and I should probably say that's kind of the hope is while my hope is that people just find it entertaining to follow along and see, Ryan and I finally collaborate on a dungeon. It's something we want to do for a long time.
Oh yeah.
But I also am hopeful that people can take away very specific tools and techniques and tips for designing their own dungeons, whether they're trying to publish them or just run it for their friends. But I wanted to, before we really dive into it, Ryan, do you want to talk about what your process has been for designing adventures thus far? Like when you sit down and you got to either prep something or adapt something that's already been prepared, like what's been your process? Like, would you agree that sometimes it's hard to know where to start or what to do?
Yeah, so what I usually do is I'll fuck around with something for a while and then I'll talk to you. And that's
Mhm.
generally been my process when I do adventure stuff. But yeah, I ran our Dark Kingdoms campaign for 2.5 years. And somehow I don't think I've run a game in over a year now, I don't think, but I was kind of
Essentially,
working off of a little bit of published material from Cobalt Press, pretty heavily adapting a campaign to fit something that was better. And I think one of the things that really stuck out to me is when we basically converted a dungeon like live on stream during my prep, and basically just used the layout and turned it into one where we like all the players were, like chopping off their body parts and stuff like that.
that was
Um,
sick.
but yeah, prior to that, outside of just adapting stuff, I think that's what I did the most is I would try to find something close to what I really wanted and then just adapt a little bit differently. Like I don't often just kind of start from scratch or haven't in quite a long time. Um, so yeah, it does make it a little bit more difficult to do that. And I also didn't have like your um, design tool that you recently put out on Itch too. That would have made it a whole lot easier. But yeah, I agree with you. You know, it's not super easy to just get up and going. So I think this is going to be really helpful for people to do exactly what we're trying to do.
Right. Do because for the people either watching or listening, I haven't taken Ryan through any of these exercises, and that's kind of how the format will be, where each of these weeks I'll have a different exercise, and that will hopefully take us to a completed adventure that we can release on Itch. But for you, Ryan, is there anything in particular, any topic about dungeon design that you've been especially curious about that you're looking forward to diving into, or something that we've kind of put on our editorial calendar that you're looking for? I mean, what do you want to get out of this? Because my goal is to just try to help and teach people and get an excuse to hang out with you every week. But what are you getting out of this?
I mean, that's a huge part of it is actually, the lead up to this to be able to just have something where you and I get to collab every week has been really exciting. But as far as the dungeon design stuff goes, I think, I mean, you have a lot of lessons on storytelling collective. And we have talked a lot about like choice design and different aspects of that, which has really influenced the way that I think about RPGs and whatnot. But I think actually being able to sit down and do the process beginning to end, I don't think there's any like one thing that I'm like particularly that like stands out as much as just the thought of not doing it in pieces, not adapting something, but going from like literally, as far as I know, what we're doing is we're going to pick like a theme and just go from there, beginning to end. And I think the last time I really did something like that actually was when we ran Victory Basic. And we built the whole layer of the dungeon, but not more than that. So I think that's what I'm most excited for, is to actually get the lessons complete beginning to end and feel like I actually finished something and that we have something finished at the end. I think that's what I'm most excited for. And I also think theme too. Like that's what I mean, it's going to be like some dark shit, but like
Oh yeah,
I think that's what I'm really excited for as well.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'm really excited to dive into this with you. And I think the last thing I'll say before we get into the meat of our first episode is, this is my way of putting together a dungeon. I try to draw on things like game design theory and principles, especially from other industries like board games, video games, traditional games. Um, and of course, on the back of my experience, I've been publishing since 2008, which makes me feel very old. But this is just one way to do it. And I guess I'll kind of paraphrase my yoga instructor, which is that this is a buffet. Take what you want and leave what you don't. So if there's something on here where you're thinking, you know what, maybe this won't work for me, but oh, this will really be something I can use for my own games, that's totally fine. I don't expect anybody to, you know, follow this process exactly as we lay it out. But our hope is that, you watch, you tune in, and you find something that you can take away for your own games. So that
Well,
being said,
and
oh, go on.
to before we get going, then I mean, just for the people that may not know who Sersa Victory is, and as you said, you've been designing for quite a while. What are some things that people can find where they'll go, oh yeah, no, I've definitely seen that. So because they know, because you've got published adventures in a bunch of places. So to speak to a little bit to the experience of like what we're actually going through and that you're someone who clearly knows what they're doing, like what is a little bit of your published material and stuff.
Good point. I didn't even think about that. So, um, I think most people probably know me from my writing for Kobold Press. I've been writing, I think my first published article with them was 2008, 2009. More recently, I've done the modules Tomb of Mercy, which was run on this channel, if you want to check that out. Necropolis of the Mailed Fist, which was a tournament adventure. I do have something upcoming. I don't know if I can say exactly what yet, but something dropping this year with Kobold. I'm also an instructor for Storytelling Collective, which is run by Ashley Warren. Many of you may be familiar with her. She's done work on Rime of the Frost Maiden. She does the Uncaged series. And I have courses there about not just dungeon design, but also choose your own adventure style books. And I do have a course coming up. Again, I can't say exactly what, but very soon we'll be dropping. So keep an eye out for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be on sometime around Valentine's Day. And I've also done some of my own self-published things on Itch. Most recently, Cyclic Dungeon Generation, which has kind of popped off. I mean, Ryan was right. I didn't believe him, but last I checked, it's like 4,000 downloads. So maybe he was right about that.
Same.
So
Just, I mean, just I was like, bro, can you please just put this out? People are gonna love it. It's not a bunch of these old school grognards or whatever anymore. It's a bunch of people that are literally seeking this exact information. And he was like, okay, fine, I'll put it out, and it like blew up. So, you know,
yeah, it's been really great. There's some blog posts where people have been making their own dungeons with it, and it's been really exciting
yeah.
to see. And then, I do choose an adventure style books through Trident Gamebooks, which is relatively new, where I write pick a path fantasy stories, mostly aimed at tween and teen girls. But yeah, and just kind of miscellaneous stuff here and there, I guess.
So clearly, you know what you're doing, and that's not even talking about a bunch of the stuff you did with like fourth core and all that kind of stuff, which I don't think you really like to get into, but a lot of just amazing stuff. So clearly, again, Sersa knows what he's talking about. So if you're listening, this is going to be a great resource, and definitely go check out his courses on Story Collective as well. And we'll be, I'll be talking about that at the end of our streams each week as well. But since this is our first one, if you're listening, enjoy. Let's get cracking. What's first on our docket tonight besides me chugging this Red Bull and getting more awake?
I love the docket. So our first task, and this is what I do whenever I design a dungeon, is working out what my theme is going to be, and specifically my theme keywords. So you should have a board called Deathtrap Tomb Verbs up. It should have like tomb and then question marks and the word exhume. Is that the one that we're looking at right now? 'Cause we got a couple
I
boards.
think I have. I think I have Death Tomb Materials up. Is the one I think that I have up.
Sure, there should be a
Um.
second one called verbs. It looks very
Okay.
similar.
Let me. Is it the first link that you sent?
Should be, yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I clicked on the second link. Let me get. I see. Yep. Death
Hey,
Tomb
there you
Verbs.
are.
Okay. There we go. All right.
Perfect. So what I like to do with the theme is split it up into two different keywords. And because we're doing kind of a Tomb of Horrors, Deathtrap dungeony type thing, I figured tomb would be one of those theme keywords. But I
Okay.
have these question marks here for you, Ryan. And I like to do two theme keywords. And the reason why, and this is something that will come up repeatedly throughout this podcast series, the stream series, is combinations. By taking two or more different elements, often elements that don't seem like they would fit together at first blush, and then smushing them together. And so it's one thing to say, okay, my theme of the dungeon is tomb or it's, mountain or whatever. But if you've got two different themes, two different theme keywords that we're mixing together, as you'll see, that will open up a lot of interesting opportunities to come up with unique environments, monsters, traps, treasures. We'll get into that more here in a second as we dive in. So this first board here is called the Deathtrap Tomb Verbs. Now, there's this concept from fiction writing and I think screenwriting too, um, called the promise of the premise. Is that a phrase you've heard before?
I've not actually heard that phrase before. No.
So the idea is basically when you pick up any piece of media like a book or go to a movie or play a video game, the premise makes a promise to you. Like, okay, I just finished watching The Mummy with Brendan Fraser because it's been on Hulu, and I love that movie. And when when the movie came out, you see the poster and you see like, okay, the premise of this movie is Brendan Fraser going to Egypt and fighting mummies. So I better see mummies and curses and, you know, Indiana Jones style traps and scorpion, you know what I mean? All the
Right.
accoutrements that you would expect. And I think that's true for tabletop modules as well. If we say, hey, there's a module and this is what it's called, and here's what the artwork looks like, here's the back cover text, you're making a promise to your players or your audience if you're selling it that your adventure is going to have certain things in it, certain interactions, certain things the players can do and see. And if your module doesn't provide that, the players can feel bored, or they can be, hey, I bought this expecting it. I'm sure maybe you've had an experience like this. You don't have to specifically name a module, but have you ever bought something and been like, oh, I thought it was going to be this, and it totally wasn't?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could list the last like 8 modules from WotC, but you know,
Brutal.
I don't have
What
to.
a
Yeah.
bracketing that. But yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
sure most people can relate to that experience of, they bought something and they expected to have a certain experience and it didn't deliver. And
Yeah.
in a lot of cases, that's because the it didn't make good on the promise of the premise. So what does that
Yeah.
mean for what we're talking about tonight? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to come up with our theme, and the theme is going to be what influences literally every other episode of this series.
Mm.
So I have here, Tomb.
Right.
What I want you to do for me is come up with our second theme keyword. It could be a place, it could be a creature, it could be an idea. So, for example, like when I did one of my pick a path game books, I used a similar process, and mine was tomb and elf. So I had these two different theme keywords, and that's what I mixed together like chocolate and peanut butter to create, what I thought were some unique, scenarios. So you're shaking your head.
I guess it depends. Chocolate and peanut butter.
I love it.
Let's see. I mean, I feel like Jason in chat is definitely. I mean, he knows me. I don't think vampire. I love vampires. I love vampires. I'm not a huge fan of vampires in role playing games. I feel like I've never really ran into a module where the vampire felt great.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say too, why I might steer away from vampire is that what makes these combinations work in terms of inspiring unique ideas is that they're two things that don't necessarily go together. So like Tomb, you would expect, okay, Tomb and vampire is a pretty classic combo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what I invite you to do, I guess it doesn't have to be something like super out of left field, like Tomb and trumpets, but something that is going to allow us to come up with really interesting combinations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Gosh. So yeah, I'm leaning towards either a creature or some type of like object that would reoccur throughout. So the first two things that pop into my head that I'm starting as a base are Lich, which I think has been done a million times.
Hmm.
But I think it's a good kind of archetype monster of basically just like a big bad undead. And Blood. I don't. I hope chat doesn't hear how loud the alert sound is, and I don't think my alert is on the top of this. No, it's not. But the alert box just went off, and damn, it's loud. There it goes. Okay, so sorry. Good. Okay, you guys can't get blasted out by it. So those are the first two things that pop into my head: is Lich and Blood. In that, we could have like a big bad undead, like, or a big bad in general, or a visual thing that comes up and up, over and over again, kind of the way that we do um, the setup for Victory Basic, right? Like the
Right.
like ice or iron or something like that, something that's going to come through a bunch. So what are your thoughts on those, or should I kind of push in different directions?
I would invite you to push a little bit further. I would try to
Okay.
avoid um, anything kind of undead related, because again, that's very similar to Tomb, and so you're not going to get
Yeah.
a lot of those interesting combos.
Right.
Blood, a little bit better,
Okay.
but let's, this is a lot. There'll be a lot of spitballing on this stream. There's no real, right or wrong answers here, but what else are you uh are you
Listen,
thinking?
I'm a basic ass edge lord, so you know what I'm going to first is undead is literally the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, Tomb is already covered. Um, okay, so let's think of kinds of places that have tombs, right? So
Yeah,
like we could even think of like like obviously Egypt is not a place that we're gonna do this in, right? But like
right.
what about something kind of in that direction where we're thinking of maybe like more of a like Egyptian as a theme, where it's kind of going to be more like canopic jars and things like that, like kind of going maybe not that one specifically, but how about is that like a good kind of word to search for to kind of give the tomb almost like a theme or like an archetype or like an area that kind of encourages design, like even like I said like ice or iron or gears or something like that. Is that a good thing to push for?
I would probably avoid Egypt for the same reason that it's already pretty closely associated with tombs.
Right.
I did
Yeah,
like
but
ice though. I do like the idea of like glacier or ice or
mhm.
because then that's something that's a bit more broad,
Right,
and that will
right.
give us, as we'll talk about here a little bit, different verbs and different materials, different things that are
Okay.
associated with that theme.
Right.
I also don't
Janelle
know a
asked
lot
in
about this
chat,
tomb.
yeah, Janelle asked in chat, do you suggest nouns, concepts, verbs, or what for theme? I think we're talking about kind of concepts now with kind of like again, we're not going to do Egyptian, but Egyptian is a good example of something that you can pull a lot of concepts from, both visually and thematically.
Yeah,
Is your suggestion because tomb is a noun?
right.
Would you suggest for the other one something more like nouns or verbs or what for themes?
So for the themes, you could go with nouns. You can go with places or biomes, like glacier. You could go with groups or concepts. So for instance, like rings or dwarves or giants, that kind of thing. Um, I would avoid verbs because verbs we're gonna get to in a second. Um, but yeah, basically anything that will give you enough room to come up with a lot of ideas for things that the characters can do and the things that they can see, right?
So I'm not a huge ice guy,
Not a nice
but
guy.
what if we instead kept to the what if we kept to the idea of some type of like elemental material and went with something more like fire or acid or something like that?
Ooh, I've always liked acid.
I've been a fan.
Yeah. Um,
Molten from Jason's good one too. So
ooh,
yeah,
molten's
like
cool.
what if we did something like fire or acid or poison or something like that? Because poison's a good one too, because you can think of like all the different types of like creatures and things that could exude poison and or spray it or blast it. I think acid though feels a little bit better than poison.
Yeah, or we can even step it up one level, and just go with the concept of corrosion.
Okay, all right, I like that. I
And
was
those
actually gonna
concepts can make
pull
the
up.
theme keywords as well.
Yeah. I think corrosion is a good one because there's a lot of different ways that or even oh yeah, Janelle said even just elemental as a whole theme as well could be something where you could actually go through levels or sections of like ice, fire, earth and something like that.
Oh yeah, like an elemental evil type thing.
Yeah, well,
Um,
no, I'm good without that. Then I like corrosion. I think I really like corrosion because the thing with corrosion is there's a lot of different ways that can come up. Whether it is through acid, whether it's through some like weird type of aging, whether it's some like creatures that can corrode like the things that you're wearing. I think corrosion is a little bit out there too. I think that'll make it a little bit interesting to try to see how far we can push that and really keep it attached to the theme. As opposed to, like you said, something that feels a little bit more basic, like Tomb and Undead or something like that. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put corrosion in this second spot here. So this will be our second theme keyword. And again, there's not necessarily like a right or wrong way to come up with theme keywords. The goal here is have two things that aren't so similar or aren't so commonly associated, where you're not really getting those interesting combos that will inspire. Because really, it's about coming up with combinations where at first blush you're like, do these things really even go together? And it forces you to then, work out that contradiction and come up with an interesting interaction. But again, also it could be place or group of people or a group of objects, a category. So we got tomb and we got corrosion. And already, and I'm hoping you feel this way too, the wheels are already turning.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting because I love when you look at the definition of words and it just tells you it's just a way, like basically look up a shorter version. So corrosion is a noun meaning the act or process of corroding, right? So great. So I went to corrode, and I love looking up the definitions of things because sometimes you get like weird different variations of stuff. So corrode is an intransitive verb. It means to destroy a metal or alloy gradually, especially by oxidation or chemical action. That's number one. Number two is to impair steadily or deteriorate. I love that already has something popping in my head because by the definition of corrosion, to impair steadily could be not even like the metal you're wearing, could be you actually. That's right. And then number three is to be eaten or worn away. So I already have some stuff brewing in my head about like, maybe something not like the death curse, but something that could be like almost time related where like you have like, some type of trap that is, there might be like a real world time. Cause I know we've done that with some of your, tournament modules before where you could be basically being eaten away and you only have a certain amount of time to get there. So, yeah, I like it. I think this is going to be really interesting to pull these two things together.
I love it. And, one more thing I'll say before we get into the next step here is, I love the classics. For me, I'm the kind of person where I am happy to play a gray walled dungeon with a dwarf, an elf, a human, and a halfling, right? But especially if you want to publish, really the way to stand out is to have an interesting theme, a unique spin on the dungeon formula, the dungeon environment. And, I don't want to speak for you, Ryan, but I would love to hear your thoughts about basically buying or playing dungeons and it feeling very bland. Like, have you had that experience where you're like, okay, it may even be competently done, but it's very forgettable. Nothing really comes to mind when you think about it afterwards.
Realistically, I mean, it's a long time since I really play a lot of dungeon stuff. And that's pretty much the reason, like when we were running Dark Kingdoms, and for those that don't know, Dark Kingdoms is the last 5e thing I'll ever run. But I ran an evil campaign for 2.5 years, where all my players were evil. A lot of people in chat right now were in that campaign either as players or as guest players. And it was a great time because really the difference between evil and not evil in 5th edition is pretty minimal, since you're all fucking murder hobos anyway. But really didn't do a lot of dungeons in it. And the one dungeon that I really did do, what you're saying is exactly what described it. Like I started playing through part of it, adapting some of the rooms, and was like, as I read further and further through, I was like, man, this is not fun. Like this is not how I would do this. And that's when I actually hopped on stream, and between like you and people like Janelle in chat and some other people in chat, we basically rebuilt the entire dungeon with a bunch of concepts. Like the one time we had we turned a room that was supposed to be some type of like anti-gravity trap, which didn't make sense for like a really like kind of Egyptian style like mausoleum style dungeon to have like a gravity trap for some reason, and we turned that into a real world 15-minute timer where the players eventually had to like chop off their body parts and put them in canopic jars in order to open the door. But each body part they chopped off was associated with a stat that then gave them a disadvantage on that stat for the rest of the dungeon. And that was like, that was cool. That was fun. It was a great moment. You know, a lot of players really remember like chopping off a bunch of their different body parts, trying to figure it out. And that was nothing close to what was actually in the module as written. And then from pretty early on, we basically just used the layout of it. And yeah, like, you know, a lot of the dungeons you read and a lot of like really well marketed modules are this, it's just the same stuff over and over again. It's like, here's a room, stuff happens, if stuff happens here, maybe it triggers other people to show up, and that's pretty much the theme of the entire dungeon.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I said, I think I personally have a pretty high tolerance for the classics, you know, for the pretty traditional dungeon. But the reason I bring it up is because I feel like by starting off with this theme approach and having these interesting combinations, that can help you sidestep that problem.
Yeah.
Because from the get-go, you're already going to have what is, you know, hopefully a unique take, a unique vibe. You know, I did this recently with a home game I'm running with my crew here in Indianapolis, and my two theme keywords were cannibalism and childhood. And that immediately gave me some really interesting ideas, sort of about a cult of Kali, right? And one of the first puzzle items that the characters find is basically a basin of baby teeth, and they learn through lore that they keep and preserve the baby teeth because that then signifies you are now an adult, and when your adult teeth come in, that is when it's time for you to start eating flesh, and they keep it. You know what I mean? And you just have like this really interesting little lore bit that just came out. And there's other things too about like, you know, the stages of growing up and different milestones as you grow up and how that relates to the act of like ritual cannibalism. Like it was pretty wild. And when I pitched the adventure to them, they're like, "Oh hell yes, we are so in."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, in a heartbeat I would play a kid cannibal dungeon. That sounds awesome.
yeah, I think it was called the Caldera of Hunger. So we're pumped about that. But anyway, all right. So we have our theme keywords here: tomb and corrosion. The wheels hopefully are turning. The next step is to come up with what I call the theme verbs. So there's a really great book. I've mentioned it a couple times on stream in the past. It's called Players Making Decisions. It's by Zach Highwiller. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And it talks about pretty early on as you're designing a game that it's important to work out the verbs that you offer the players. Now, in his book, he's talking mostly about like video games and traditional games. So for him, a verb is like, oh, in this game, I can jump and I can roll and I can block with a shield, those sorts of things. But in our case, I like to adapt that to tabletop RPGs by asking, okay, what are the most interesting thematic actions that the players will be able to take in this adventure? Again, the promise of the premise. So if I'm picking up this module and I see, you know, it's tomb and corrosion, and it's going to have some title that we'll come up with later that's appropriate to that, they're going to be like, man, what kind of shit are the players going to get up to? You know, and players are going to have an expectation for the things they'll be able to do. So what we're going to do here is come up with a list of theme verbs, about four for each of the two keywords, because it's going to be some of a shorter adventure. And these are going to be things that we will use later as a basis for encounters, for puzzles, for role-playing interactions, pretty much anything that you can think of. And you can see here that I've already started us off with one underneath tomb. And that is, you know, exhume or dig up, right? Because if I'm playing an adventure in a tomb, I'm pretty much expecting to dig something up, right?
Right.
So what we're gonna do is starting with Tomb, we're gonna work together and come up with 3 or 4 more verbs, interesting actions that could be the basis for encounters, puzzles, traps, role-playing encounters, whatever, that are related to this theme of Tomb. So why don't you start us off? Let me see if I can just hit or you should be able to click on that and hit enter and make a new box.
Okay. Yep.
Awesome. So when you think of Tomb Adventures, what is something that you would expect the players to be able to do that's interesting, that's Tomb related? Beyond just we're not talking about attacking or, you know, getting treasure. Like that's kind of baked into Dungeon Adventures, right? We're talking about things that are specific to this theme,
Right.
the Tomb.
Um. Okay. When I think of tombs, um, and you said these are verbs.
That's right. These are actions that the players will take, um, either as the centerpiece of a combat encounter or as a trap or treasure or role playing encounter. That's to be determined. But we're trying to establish here what are the interesting things that players would reasonably expect to be able to do.
In a
Because these verbs are
tomb.
how the theme gets, uh, how the rubber meets the road with the theme, right? Is
Right.
that
Right.
the
Right.
players get to do things that are thematic.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so when I think tombs, because there's different types of tombs as well. So we have corrosion as a thing,
Mhm.
but
And I invite
tombs
you to
it can be
leave
like
corrosion like completely out of your mind for now, because the idea
right,
is to
yeah,
try to do these
because
as
just the tomb
separately as
one, yeah,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah.
But when I think of tomb, I think of like we could do like a mausoleum kind of tomb. It could have like the Egyptian kind of tomb, sepulcher, burial chamber, like crypt. Um, I mean, Jason the writer just throwing out a bunch in chat. I really like the one that he just threw in, mourn.
Ooh, boom, pop it in
I
there. Morn
I
is amazing.
really like that one. That's a really great one. I think we're gonna have like
Check it
a
out.
third person helping us do a lot of writing tonight with that.
Hey,
I'm
it's all
actually gonna
good.
let me change this color to red since the other ones on this side are red. Yeah, I think mourn is a really really fantastic one.
And so maybe one that I'll pop in here, again, because I just finished watching those movies, but Mummify.
Okay. All right. So with mummify, I think is there when we think of like mummifying, or we think of does that automatically jump to like the Egyptian theme in your head? I think embalm I think a better word, because to me as soon as I see the word mummify, I immediately think of that Egyptian theme. But I think embalming can go in a bunch of different directions with that. I really like
For sure.
that. And I think embalming and corrosion, I know we're keeping corrosion out of our mind entirely, except that I'm bringing it
Mhm.
up. But I still think that really helped, like, fills in with that theme a little bit, just with, like, rot and stuff like that as well.
Love it. So what's
Um,
another idea you've got cooking?
well, yeah, again, Jason, when he put prey in there, I was like, we're really
Popping
going.
off.
Ooh, what is that? Yeah, I really like that. Because regardless of the kind of um, direction that we go in for what this ends up looking like overall, whether it's like a crypt full of spiders or a mausoleum full of different things. I think praying in tombs fits across all kind of like genres and potential like religions or cultures or things like that. I think that really fits a lot of different things that we could do there.
Love it. And that kind of, I don't know why there's a weird gap. Here we go. Um, with a verb that I had in mind, maybe related to prayer, which is consecrate,
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a
or
nice
maybe
one.
even exorcise. Oh no,
Ooh,
where'd it go? That was
did yours
strange.
disappear from you? Oh,
Let me try it again. Oops.
oh.
Consecrate, exorcise. All right, there we go. We're getting there.
I think this one kind of. I think we can delete the one above this one, right? Or are you just dragging it up?
There we go. Yeah, we can just drag it around. Not a big deal.
All right.
All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do 6 for each. Now we may or may not use each of these. These are just kind of
Well,
to
what
give
if
us.
Well, what if we split consecrate and exercise? Because those are two very, very different things, right? Because isn't consecrating like making something like back to holy, and exercise is like, so hold in high religious regard is consecrate, but exercise is to free from evil spirits. I guess they're the same. If you're consecrating something, you're
Sort of driving away the evil presence,
driving away the evil. Yeah,
spirits.
yeah. That works. I think that works. I think it's the same thing, but in like very different ways, almost like, because you can consecrate almost to like make sure spirits don't come, or exercise to get rid of the ones already there. So I think that's solid. That feels good.
So why don't you take us home on Tomb with
Oh gosh.
with one more verb here?
All right. So we've already got exhume, which is a great one. We got mourn. We have embalm. Let me get my thing out of here. We got pray. We got consecrate. What's a good word for like putting something to rest? You know what I mean?
That's a good one. I mean, we could do a phrase, just like a verb phrase, like put to rest or lay to rest. Um, that's fine. I mean, it can be a verb phrase.
Jason, what's a phrase that means that? Word for,
Or like inter, I think is what it is. Interred or interred.
reverse dictionary. I don't know what the reverse dictionary is. Synonyms for put to rest: annul, bring to a close, bury, entomb. Inter, yeah, is a good one right there. Nullify. So inter means to bury or put away. Inhume. Ooh, we have exhume. What about inhume? Literally beginning to end right there. Yeah.
I like it.
I like it. Yeah, because what pops into my head, whether we go in this direction or not, kind of feels like maybe in this line of verbs here, you exhume something, and that could kick it off. Like you kind of messed up, and by the end, after you have some mourning and praying and consecrating and exercising, you could inhume something. So that could be like a whole. That could almost be like how it starts and how it ends, where it's like, hey, someone fucked up and pulled this out of a tomb. You need to go put it back, kind of situation.
Exactly.
Dope. All right.
Awesome. So I'm feeling good about this. And again, I picked Tomb one because we're doing kind of Tomb of Horrors type thing, but also
Right.
Tomb is a pretty easy one of these to come up with. We're all pretty familiar with Tomb Adventures and Tomb raiding stories. So now we're gonna start really, really popping off here and go over to corrosion and come up with verbs that fit the corrosion theme. So I might start us off. I'm just gonna put kind of an easy one here, dissolve.
Okay. All right.
And again, like these can be pretty broad. So dissolve could be like, oh, I'm dissolving a material like stone or metal, or it could be I'm dissolving one substance into another. But yeah, we definitely have flexibility in how we can ultimately interpret these verbs, if that makes sense.
Right. So for corrosion, I so there's a bunch of different ways you can go with this. Like what pops into my head right away is like decay or rot. Yeah. Those could be two different things, or they could be one. Jason said immolate. When I think immolate, I think more fire, which doesn't really feel as much corrosion to me. Like I imagine corrosion is almost like either time eating something away or something being like eaten away as opposed to something being burned away. But yeah, I like. Should I do those as two things, or should I do decay and rot as one? Since I mean, I think they're pretty similar.
Yeah, you can always just kind of group them together.
Okay.
You don't have to be super specific with it. Uh, and yeah, chat, feel free to toss your ideas up.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
one of the things I'm thinking, and this is sort of an inverse. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's why, because I can't click on the one that you're clicked on. Is
Oh, I can just get out of there. You go.
um like preserve or protect rum corrosion.
Oh,
You know,
interesting. Yeah,
little
just go with
little
like
little,
you said, go with the inverse.
little Thompson's wood sealant.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
and that's an angle you can take too, because again, like these, the theme of corrosion can and these verbs can represent things the players do, but they can also represent dangers or, um, yeah, rust oxidized is a good one.
Um. Yeah, I think. Well, it's going to be interesting because if you don't necessarily say the theme right away, because I don't think corrosion is really a theme that people go to right away. But if they're as they're going through, if everything is like an acid pit, or everything is decaying or rotting away, or you have everything decaying or rotting away except for something,
Hmm.
or something even like rusting or oxidizing or something like that, I think people will eventually get it. But I feel like there's a plethora of different ways that it can be interpreted that might not be super obvious right away until someone goes, oh shit, everything is like corroding, you know what I mean, like everything's dissolving or everything's this or everything's that. I don't feel like this is a thing that slaps you in the face like maybe like an ice dungeon would, where like the whole
Right.
thing is just like, oh, it's ice. But I think, like I said, if you don't do it, show up right away, there's so many different ways that it can quote unquote corrode, that I think this is a really good subtle one that might give people a little bit of, they might have to go through a couple rooms before they go, oh shit, here might be like the through line.
Exactly right. Another idea that I have here, this is from something I learned about not too long ago, is acid etching. So I'm kind of
Ooh.
stretching the corrosion theme a little bit. And again, the goal here is not to be extremely like boxed in. It's
Right.
meant to help with idea generation. And so if you're like, hey, I have a good idea. Again, we're stretching the corrosion theme a little bit because like you wouldn't really refer to acid etching as corrosion, but in my mind, that's the association. Like, okay, corrosion, acid, and I was just reading about like how they would engrave medieval armor, where they would dig these little like designs into metal and then pour acid, and it would corrode over that spot, and that's how they made these intricate patterns.
Yeah.
So
Like, I can already picture like either some type of like trap or some type of like clue that might take time, might even need to like come back around, like in within the dungeon, like for to, acid could be splashed on something and they don't notice right away, but maybe when they have to loop back around, because obviously we're gonna have loops in this. They, if they look again, the acid could have like eaten something away and given them a clue to some different direction or something like that. I really like that as a like, does its
exactly.
thing. Yeah. This
And
is
to give a little
great. And
preview, really quick, to give a little preview of kind of how this will work its way into the future episodes, is that again, these can be the basis for a lot of different things. So as you mentioned, the acid etching, my mind is already percolating, a mossy Jerry. And the etching could be a trap. So maybe you get hit with acid and it etches a particular sigil on your armor, and that has some sort of implications. Or you could
ooh.
find certain kind, you have to find the right kind of acid or learn what the right design is to etch on your own armor or the armor of somebody who's entombed. It could be a role playing thing where you have to part of a role playing ritual, or you have to learn how to, you know what I mean? Like these can be the foundation for a lot of different interactions. And I hope as we're doing this, it's becoming clear why this is important, because this is pushing us to come up with ideas for things that are thematic, that fit the theme. And as we start to combine them in the next part here, we're going to see even more how this can help us come up with interesting ideas beyond I go into a room, there's two orcs and 2d6 gold pieces, which, I love those
Mhm.
kinds of adventures, but we're really trying to go beyond that tonight.
Right.
So I don't know if the chat, we can maybe do one more to balance it out.
Yeah.
If
Well, I
there's any,
think
if you're, I don't have chat up, so
there were two more here. Janelle dropped exposure,
mm, hmm,
which I dig,
I like it.
Because I think exposure with preserve protect kind of really goes well together, but it could also, I mean, it can go well with so many of them, where something like being exposed to something and either then being corroded or not works out really well. Jason wrote, yeah, tarnish or weather works really well too. I think all of those really like go well together. I think
I like that.
Exposure, um, uh, or weather, as in to be weathered, right? It's still the same spelling, right? But I like in the, oh shit, I moved this down. I think tarnish is a really good one to put in with like rust and oxidize.
Oh yeah,
Um,
and as a big Elden Ring fan, the word tarnish is really speaking to
yeah.
me.
I still gotta, it's one of those things. I know that if I start, it's gonna take over, so I'm not started yet. But I have things
Yeah,
that I
put
wish I
aside
was doing.
150 hours.
Yeah,
How
right.
easy that is.
There's, if I could put aside 3 hours to get something done, that'd be great. 150 is quite a bit. All right, I
So
think
we
this looks
yeah.
solid.
So what we're gonna do, we're gonna kind of keep this in our back pocket. We'll revisit this over the course of the stream. Um, but before we move on to the next part, which is the materials, how are you feeling about this first exercise so far?
I think it's good. I think the point is to get the wheels rolling, right?
Yeah,
And I think that clearly in like a lot of these, we got the wheels rolling, because even if we just look over this whole thing, when you first think tomb, to me, a lot of times the Egyptian theme pops into my head. But when we look at all 12 of these words, it really steers away from that for me. Um, because of some of the ways that we're doing things. I mean, we might end up going back to that kind of idea or using some of the facets from it, but it doesn't, we didn't write down, like sand or something like that, you know what I mean?
right.
Like, so it kind of gives it a different vibe, I think. But there were a bunch of times where we would put one down and be like, oh, I totally see where this can go. Oh, I already have an idea for that, and using that exercise as, as for that exact purpose, I think this is great. This is fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on. So there should be a second Miro board here
Is it the one
called
I did
Deathtrap
first?
New Materials. Yes.
Yep, there we go. Okay.
Great. So this will be somewhat similar to what we did for the verbs. So whereas the verbs were actions, right? Things that the player characters can do, or potentially, monsters. Um, Materials are the things that we would expect to appear in a dungeon adventure with a specific theme. And these can be inanimate objects, they can be creatures, it can be environmental details. This one's a bit more flexible. Again, like we don't have to really worry about like, oh, does it really, really fit? We just need to come up with ideas that fit this, you know, fit the theme enough, right?
All right.
So you can see here I've started off with a couple materials here for Tomb. Pretty obvious ones. You'll probably see some
Mm-hmm.
skulls or some bones,
Mm-hmm.
sarcophagi, ashes, urns, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I typically do is I try to do 20, but in the interest of time, I think we'll do 10 for each.
Okay.
And then what we're gonna do to close out the episode, and this is where we really start getting into it, is randomly pairing them off across the
Okay.
theme.
All
And
right.
you'll see that'll be a lot of fun, I think. So I'm gonna do a little new card here and put the number because we're gonna be needing a D10 a little bit later on,
Okay.
and this will help us keep track. So materials for a tomb, right? We got skull, we got sarcophagus, we got ashes, and yeah, we can just probably just go ahead and just put the little cards in place. 8. Perfect. And hopefully, well, we can always just scroll up, I guess. And again, I invite chat. Feel free to pop your ideas. There's some really, really good stuff coming through tonight. Um, all right, so tomb. So what do you got for me, Ryan?
Um. All
Objects,
right.
creatures, environmental details, sounds, smells, anything.
Yeah. I think. Chad just said scroll. I think that's a good one. Scrolls or runes is good. Um, I mean, it's like the standard kind of old materials like spiderwebs, dust, those kind of things. Like I think are always little detail things that can pop in. I really like the when you have those like little details. Like if you see a room that like is covered in dust and there's no footprints, that tells you a whole lot. Or it
Yeah.
can, those kind of things. Or like I said, like spider webs in the corners that are disturbed or undisturbed. I think little the accoutrement of a normal old place works well. Um Ooh, yeah, Jason said lichen or mushrooms. I think in like a corroding rot area, I think that's a really good one too, because even instead of dust or with dust, you could have areas that are like weirdly moist, and you could have a
Hmm.
lot of like fungus that corrodes or eats away. Um, I think runes is a really, really good one too. Um,
And so we've got, like I said, normally I do like 20,
mhm.
but we'll just do 10. Let's see, we've got maybe one more monster. I put skeletons here. What's another kind of classic tomb monster in your
I
mind?
think
We'll avoid
doom
mummy because we kind of
monster.
talked about mummy already.
Yeah. Well, we already have the spider web, so the spiders could always be a thing. I'm trying to think of, gosh, what lives in deep dark tombs? Skeletons. I mean, I imagine other forms of undead that are down there. Depending on if we want to go towards like whites or something like that, or um,
Maybe like spirits or ghosts. That might be another
yeah,
classic one.
ghosts. Ooh, grubs and maggots. I really like maggots
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff too. Yeah, I think that really helped. I think that really digs into the potential like rot section too.
I changed this to ghost.
Okay, you could put skull and skeletons up there as one too
Perfect.
to
That
kind of
makes
give
sense.
you.
Yeah. Cool. So you can see how quickly this goes for this one. That's why I usually
Oh
do
yeah
like
yeah
20,
yeah
but
yeah.
all right. And again, tomb is really easy one because we're all pretty familiar with it. Let's jump over to corrosion now.
You know what?
So we
Why don't
want
we
to
put let's put the lichen mold fungus one actually over in the corrosion section. I feel like that one feels a lot more for that one.
sure. Went ahead and swapped it out there. And then we can go back over here. So we got one more
Um
slot here then for tomb.
Yeah, weirdly moist. Yeah, Jason. Yeah. Um. Oh man. Tombs. Well, yeah, bats was a thing. I think.
So it can also be things like more conceptual like curses, for example, right?
Yeah, I like curses. I think curses is a great one. Then let's go with that. Okay.
Because
Um.
ultimately what these will be like the literal materials that we put into our various chambers, right?
Right. Well, then we have to
They'll
put
form the
acid
basis.
then. Like we literally have to put
Absolutely.
like there's got to be some type of like pool of acid or like the acid etching. We've already talked about that.
Hmm.
Um. Okay, corrosion. Well, we could put like actual like just rust. Um Yep, gas fumes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Gosh. I wonder if we could put like not necessarily like fire, but like what if like heat is a possibility? Because we talked about exposure in one area, so something could have just like a lot of I don't know. I do like water. I think water is a good one because something could be like
Hmm.
worn away for a long time. Um
We might put like eroded stone as a
yeah. Yeah.
um
I think
so I'm thinking too, maybe like metal shards, like bits of rusted metal or things like that,
Mm-hmm. 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 Um.
or like protective wax.
Ooh, yeah. I also listen. I love me a good patina.
There you go.
I'm a big fan. It's one of my favorite colors ever, and I love seeing materials. And I think that that would be a good kind of almost clue. I think at some point, like you go to an area where there's not really a whole lot of like whatever, but you see some statue that is like patinaed, and you're like, oh, this is there's certain factors that have to go into a patina, like what like are why are they here, kind of thing.
Right.
Uh,
Um,
Dementia is a corrosion of the mind, says Andy.
hey, that's so we can maybe put like I don't know, I think of a general term for it.
But you didn't even just call it like mental deterioration.
Sure. Mental deteriorate. People will learn that I can't actually spell.
Acid rust, gas or fumes, water eroded stone, metal shards, protective wax.
So what's
Um,
what's a monster we can pop in here?
well, I
Because we
mean,
don't have a whole
you
lot.
go straight to rust monster, but we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I've always loved the iron golems because they vent corrosive gas.
yes, Iron Golem's good, but Iron Golem also does give you like an interesting kind of like steampunkiness to a dungeon that I don't know if it feels like we're going in that direction. You know what I mean? Because like something has to create the Iron Golem.
Hmm.
Um, which then like where does the Iron Golem come from? Is it like a wizard? Fuck, I
Yeah.
just had something pop up into my head. Um, we could just do Golem for right now,
Okay, or
and
like animated
then
armor.
yeah, animated armor like a patinaed animated armor works. God, yeah. I do like what if we just put Gollum for right now and kind of like know in our head that animated armor kind of lumps into that because
Sure.
like Janelle wrote like flesh golems, they're like coffin golems. I mean, the classic cathedral golem.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think I think that idea of just some type of like animated like thing is a really good thing to do because we could go in like a bunch of different directions. But I think like a patinaed animated armor sounds like a really dope thing too. But we could also have like a golem of corroded stuff, similar to like an animated
Exactly.
armor. Yeah, I think that looks really good. I think that looks really fucking
Awesome.
good.
All right, so
Yeah.
we have our two tables here of materials, and like I said, when I sit down
Ooh.
to do this, oh, we got some good ideas popping through.
Oh, the maggot golem.
Hey, don't get ahead of yourself yet.
I was gonna say if we roll 10-10, the maggot golem is what's up.
Well, you know what? Here's
All
the thing we
right.
can do, because this is also something that I want to make clear to people is we'll be doing a lot of like lo-fi procedural generation with dice and tables and stuff like that, because the idea is that it helps create these interesting combinations you might not have thought of otherwise.
Right.
However, if something jumps out at you immediately, don't be afraid to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm just going to pick this." So why don't we go ahead because we're going to need to kind of write this down somewhere. I'm just going to open up my notebook here. Let's just go ahead and assume that 10 and 10 were matched up. We have our grub, our maggot golem. There we go.
I like it. I mean, there's so many good golems though, because even like this, Andy wrote sarcophagolem. That's
See, we're
solid.
getting there. See, I'm
Yeah.
gonna open up a. I'm just gonna make a Google Doc here for us, and then we can always try to share it later. So I have maggot grub golem. Yeah, the sarcophagolem. Hell yeah, sarcoph. All right. So, but what I want you to do here now, before we get ahead of ourselves,
Okay. Yeah.
is grab a 10-sided die.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna just roll 10d10 basically, or d10 10
No,
times,
so
or
we're gonna
no?
kind of do them like just grab one.
Okay.
And what I will do is I will roll on the tomb list,
Okay.
and then you will roll on the corrosion list. We'll kind of go one by one. We'll do this a couple times. I guess we'll
Okay.
do it until we have 10 different things. And we will just sort of see what we come up with.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and roll the first one here. All right. So what did you get for your roll?
I got 3, so gas or fumes.
Gas and fumes. I rolled a 7, so I got scrolls.
Okay.
So I'm going to write down here my little notes here. We have scrolls plus gas/fumes. So what ideas come to mind immediately as we talk about, okay, we're going to have some kind of interaction. It could be
Mm-hmm.
treasure, it could be a trap, it could be, whatever, role-playing encounter. But when I say, okay, we're combining scrolls in a tomb
Yeah.
and gas and fumes, what comes to
The
mind?
the very first thing that pops into my head is a cursed scroll where it seems like it's something that would be really, really good for something in the dungeon, as if, like, as in, like, here's a giant pool of acid, here's a scroll of make bridge, but when you read it, it just, like, gases, like,
Cloud kills you.
instead, like, yeah, either insta death or, like, serious, like, yeah, some type of, like, trap scroll that kicks stuff out. I can, if you want to send me the link to the Google Doc, if you want me to bring that up, I can throw it up over here
Oh
too.
yeah. Let me do that here real quick. So share. All right. I have shared it with your Gmail.
Oh, okay.
I can also, I guess, just link you to it too.
Yeah, if you just drop the link in Discord, that'd be easiest.
There we go.
Throw it over here. No, we don't have any of our private information. Okay, that'll work for now. Actually, here to keep this over a little more. Oh, got it. All right, now we're centered. All right, so we got it. Maggot,
Awesome.
grub golems, sarcophagus golems, scrolls plus gas fumes. Okay, all right.
So let's go ahead and let's do it again. So roll your D10. We'll kind of re-roll if there's a duplicate.
All right. You go
All
first
right.
this time.
So for my roll, I got 8, which is curses.
Ooh, I got mental deterioration.
Interesting.
Ooh, so
So
let's color these. Let's color these when they're done. So we got this is done. This is done. Okay, so you got curses. So that one's out. Mental deterioration is out. Okay. All right.
so what does that say to you? Curses plus, I mean, the obvious one is a curse that um deteriorates your mental state.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
what
I
are
think
some
the
other?
obvious one is what do you say? What else?
Yeah, I mean, what else could we do?
I mean, I know it feels obvious, but I think the curse for the mental deterioration is a great one, especially because when we talk about, like, the corrosion, that's kind of something that we talked about in one of the verbs or whatever, where, like, it could be something over time, where it's not just, wasn't there, like, did we pick a verb that had
We have like decay and rot.
yeah. I feel like there was something where we could say, like, it's not just, it's not necessarily always your materials, it could be you. And I remember saying something about, like, the death curse or something similar, where, like, maybe there's something that's got, like, a real life timer on it.
Yeah.
Janelle said bye intelligence points.
Hmm.
I do kind of like that idea of something that'll like tick away at you over time or something, like give you
Yeah.
something where like each failed roll, like you lose a point of something, whatever.
Yeah, and I'm thinking sort of like a reverse Midas type scenario where when I think of like, okay, maybe you're not mentally deteriorating, but things in the environment that require intelligence or wisdom to engage with deteriorate over time. So, for example, like a curse that slowly erodes text off metal tablets, right?
Ooh, yeah. So like it's information that you need mentally, and not maybe necessarily your mentals.
Exactly right. And that these
Nice.
tablets could equal knowledge, right?
Oh yeah,
Again,
yeah. Oh
we're
well,
just
and then
trying to
yeah, the acid etching thing kind of can lean into that as well.
exactly right.
Uh-huh.
There's a little thing that comes from writing. I'm sure Jason's heard of this, called Wilhelm's Law,
Uh,
where basically it boils down to don't go with your first idea.
right.
I think she says your third or your fourth idea is the good one. But basically, when you're sitting down to come up with ideas for things, um, to it's okay to jot down the first thing that comes to mind, but I encourage everybody who's watching when they're if they're going to kind of do this thing at home. I was gonna do the same thing was change the font.
Oh my fucking
I knew
god.
it was coming. I knew it was
I
coming.
don't I don't think it's in this one. I think it's in my personal one. Yeah, I have an Arial command in my other one. Mine defaults to Cambria. I need a nice subtle serif.
There you go.
Um
But you know what I'm
okay.
saying? Like,
Yeah,
try to
yeah,
take it.
absolutely.
Okay, what's the next thing I can think of? All right, so here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Boom, let's do it again. Rolling our D10.
All right. I rolled ooh, a 5 this time. Metal shards.
So I rolled two, sarcophagus or coffin.
Okay, all right. So we were talking about like rusted metal or something like that, but the metal shards, like something like that could be corroded or something like that. So,
Hmm.
um, so we could have a coffin or sarcophagus that has been like rusted open or has been rusted closed or something, where you need
Hmm.
something more to kind of get it open. That's always a possibility.
I'm also thinking a sarcophagus filled not with bones, but with metal shards, right? Or rusted metal.
I do it like the real way. There we
Debris, I guess is the term for it. Or even this is jumping out at me. Sarcophagus filled with a rusted iron skeleton.
go. Ooh,
See, there you go. Wilhelm's Law
nice.
coming through.
There we
And again, we
go.
may
There
or
we
may not
go.
use all these in the final product. This is just kind of an ideation phase, right? It's coming up
Right,
with
right, right,
interesting
right, right,
ideas that
right,
we can use.
right.
Anything else that you have you want to add to sarcophagus plus metal shards? Anything chats? I don't have chat up, so I'll lean on you to let me know if anything is grabbing you.
Oh, I think that one feels good right now
I dig
as a
it.
starter. All right.
All right, so here we go again.
Okay. Ooh, I got protective wax number 6.
I got Earn. That's a solid combo.
Ooh, that is a solid combo. I mean, you immediately go to like grave wax. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
that could be first idea. You know, yeah, sealed. Yeah, an urn sealed with wax is dope.
Hmm.
Um,
Earn filled with wax and only wax.
yo, yo,
Urn filled with wax organs. There you go.
uh huh, uh huh, uh huh. I think I mean I really love the second one. I really love the second one, like some type of like sealed urn where like, you know, what immediately pops into my head is, you know, there's a bunch of things we've talked about for like exposure or something like that. Where so there might be
Yeah.
like a room just completely corroded out, completely burnt out, or whatever. But there's some type of like urn with this wax that has like protected it from whatever type of corrosion we did choose for that, whether it's like some room that's like weirdly exposed to weather even though it's deep down there, or some like, acid filled thing. One thing that pops into my head is, when you did um the adventure you wrote for like my setting, but we ended up using it in Dark Kingdoms, was where like you fall into a pool of wax, right, or a pool of acid right off the jump.
Right.
And you could swim to the shore, or there's something at the bottom, kind of thing. I love that idea of just like you could risk it for something that could be good, or you could choose not to. And I really like that idea of potentially something like that, where like maybe it's like this might be good, it looks good, but you are putting yourself at risk to try to attempt to get it, kind of situation. Sounds really good. Or even just like a big item that you need, or something for that. I really like that.
Absolutely.
Wax organs too. Ooh.
Yeah. I popped into so certain wax used on urns for lore reasons that could eventually be used as part of a puzzle. Like, okay, you need to learn how to prepare this wax to then, appropriately embalm or seal these organs in an urn. I'm also thinking of like a trap. You might have a room that's filled with these wax sealed urns, but the room may eventually flood with acid, which dissolves the wax and frees whatever horrible thing is inside the urns. But yeah, ready to roll again here?
Yeah, let's do it. I got a. Ooh, man, I haven't rolled any doubles yet. 4, the water and the erosion.
I got ashes.
Hmm.
So this will be an interesting one because this one is exactly what I was talking about earlier, which
Yeah.
at first blush, so
You don't really think they
ashes.
go together well.
Yeah, so this is where design heroes are born, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the really interesting interactions start to take shape. So ashes
Well,
plus
because
water
thinking outside the
erosion.
box, obviously your brain immediately goes, well, ashes and water erodes ashes or whatever, right? But like, yeah, erode open stone urns over time, which could contain ashes. There could be um, mixing ashes with water to brew tea or something. I really, really like that. Um, there could be, what if there are almost like objects made of ashes
I like it, like
that
soap,
have been, what's up?
like soap.
Yeah, soap, or even like statues or some object that maybe is like, instead of like a river eroding, what if it's more like some object that is under like something dripping that has
Okay,
been like started to lose some of important information or something on it. Like I'm thinking almost like an ash statue or something that's been like turned to ash, but
I
then
like it.
has been dripped down. Oh, or what if it's almost like okay, stalactites hang down, stalagmite,
Mhm.
right? Where that's a quick aside. We've talked about this in a previous team. If you ever need to remember stalagmites versus stalactites, just remember stalactites, titties hang down, stalactites hang down. Right? That's why I always remember it.
The way that I was taught was stalactites hang tight and
Ooh,
stalagmites might reach the ceiling.
gotcha.
That's the
I'm
one I
gonna
learned.
I'm gonna keep with titties. I'm gonna go with that one. You're
Yeah,
welcome, everyone listening.
this is a family podcast.
It is absolutely not a family podcast.
I put sort of as a joke, cremated mermaids. Kind of think of like ashes of water creatures, but
Yeah. Oh,
that's
oh,
there.
oh, oh. So where I was going with this
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
what if there is some weird stalactite or stalagmite that is made of or has ashes in it, right? Where maybe water is dripping through the ceiling above that has a bunch of ashes in it, and the water is taking that ash down with it into the stalagmite and the stalactite.
I like it.
So that could be like an indicator of like what's above, um as it drips through.
Ooh, two Hidden Tomb above. There we go. See, now we're cooking.
I like that one.
See, that became the longest one, even though it was the toughest one. Because again, those combos really force you to come up with some good stuff. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you have the roll command in chat?
Oh, I do, and I actually do have a D10. Let me remember which one it is before chat rolls it.
I think it's like Bang D10, right?
No, because it's not. Let me just make sure CloudBot is actually on right now.
Sure,
It's
because I'd
not.
love for
That's why I
chat
didn't do
maybe
it.
roll
Yeah.
these.
So I'm pretty positive because if you just do roll, it just rolls a D20. But I think I put all of the dice in. Yeah. So if someone in chat wants to roll just exclamation point D10, we can get chat, or even two people in chat could do one on one side and one on the other. So first two D10 rolls will
and re-roll any duplicates that you see here,
mm-hmm.
If you can see very well.
So we got a 2 from Andy and a 1 from Janelle. So we got Rust Skeleton.
I dig it. So skull/skeletons plus rust. So obviously you've got, skeletons in rusted armor with rusted weapons. Skeleton Knight that breathes rusting gas when he opens his helmet visor. There you go. Flecks of corroded metal skeletons. There we go. Obviously a rusted iron demi-lich. There you go. A little callback to the old school.
You could even have, I mean, similar to the skeleton knight that breathes rusting gas, there could be some type of like giant skull on the wall, almost like that its mouth opens and it releases some type of like rusting gas or something. Skeletons and rusted armor is pretty good one. I love so because you've done this before with some stuff where you're just like, how do you come up with this stuff? Where you had I believe it was in oh my gosh, why am I blanking? It's the first thing I ran. It's like my favorite thing you've ever done.
Oh, Mail Fist.
Yeah, where you had the dragon that breathed keys. So good.
Yeah, that was put together with a very similar process. And yeah, that's how you come up with these, because a lot of people call that out as like one of the more memorable parts of the module, and that's because it was a very unusual combination that came up. Animated rust monster skeletons, that's solid.
Okay.
So let's jump back. We're almost through here. I'm gonna change this. Let's do a D3.
Trace Moss. Oh, okay. We do not have a D3 in chat.
Oh, they don't.
I will
do
a
like
D3.
Classic?
Yeah, it's all the standards.
Gotcha.
I mean, we haven't rolled any doubles yet. We could see if it trusts, Chat, why don't we get 2 more D10s? And if it's, I assume out of 2, maybe we'll get 1 from each side. So whichever one's open first, and then we'll go down to like D2s. I do think I have a D2 in here. Roll it. See, that's what I'm saying. Rolled an 8. We haven't got that left. Like in mold fungus. There we go. So that's 1. And then let's get 1 more from chat and see if we can get a 5, a 6, or a 9 here.
That Moss has taken a liking to him.
4. Our first double of the night. So I'll roll boo 4. So should I just do no, let's see if I can pull it out with the D10. 6. So lichen mold fungus and spiderweb cobwebs.
So the thing that I'm thinking, we get our obvious ones out of the way first. So I'm thinking like a spider blighted with mushrooms, you know?
But also, there's types of um fungus that aren't. I can't remember what it's called. D&D has a couple of cool things, and one of them is, I think it's like Oromykos or something like that. Like, it's the thing in the Underdark that is basically, it's like the biggest creature in D&D because it is like one thing. And I think in the Escape from the Underdark module, they actually have like the like mushroom demon woman like marry this Oromykos thing
Oh
or whatever.
yeah, Zoctmoy, whatever her name is.
Yeah, I think they actually had that kind of thing. But instead, what I'm thinking is like, instead of like have you seen like the way that like mushrooms like spread, or like fungus can spread, where it's not like a mushroom, it's not like the physical piece, but it's almost like the
Yeah.
web of things underneath. Like
Hmm.
fungus is so crazy. Like they I read this article about how like Japan like put down like the stops with like fuel, like little spot of like grain or something for like Japan, and grew mushrooms on it, and they actually like created a more efficient subway track because they moved in more efficient ways than they did. Yeah. Anyway, but like that kind
Yeah.
of thing, yeah, like a mycelium thing. Or if there's a spider that shoots out that kind of thing, where it's not necessarily webs, but it's like this mycelium fungus that like it hits and then just like spreads this, thing
Yeah.
instead. And then maybe later can will then start to sprout actual mushrooms as it like decays and rots something down.
What I'm thinking too, and again, this is another example of taking the keywords, using them for ideation and stretching them. And I think you might like the direction. When I think of spiders, probably because I've been working on this, I'm thinking like drow. I'm thinking Lolth type stuff.
I mean, I was very close to getting a loft tattoo for a long time.
There you
She
go.
is my favorite thing ever.
And so I'm
But
thinking
yeah.
of like, I forget how I like fungus can clone or it can bud. And so like fungus clones of drow or like driders, like kind of bringing maybe a little dark elf action in here.
Mm-hmm. What
All
was the
right.
original thing again? Spiders and like, and yeah. I like that. You could even have almost like even if it's not like drow, you could almost mix it with like kind of the concept of a drider. But what if it's like the like mushroom people that are
Oh, the
spiders?
myconids. Yeah, like
Yeah,
myconid
like what if it's
spiders.
like a
Jesus.
myconid drider? Yeah, because that's even something like you said, like weird combinations, like a myconid like drider or spider, as opposed to like bringing in something like drow, rusted dark elf animated armors. Gotcha.
Yeah, I played the dark elves in
Ooh,
Warhammer Fantasy, and I
you're
love
one
the
of
way their armor, like,
those.
yeah, the very like jagged pointy armor, which again can also tie into our corrosion theme. So again, you use these things as a springboard. Like, definitely let your mind wander. Don't worry too much about like, well, does this technically fit? Like,
Mhm.
it's all about having fun. All right, we're down to the last two. I guess you could like roll a D2 or flip a coin or something.
Yeah, I'll just do a D2 if you want to do a D2 or a coin flip or
Fine.
whatever.
Boing. All right. What'd you get?
I got one. I got acid.
I got dust.
Okay, that'll be interesting. Acid dust, so which means we got patina specter. Acid and dust.
Then patina inspector.
Yeah.
Specter plus patina.
Okay. So acid dust. I'm gonna put battery dust. I like the
Oh,
concept of
oh,
like,
hell yes.
yeah. I like the concept of some type of like like dusted like acid as opposed to like a liquid. I think that's a really cool idea of some type of like airborne dusted acid where it hits you, and instead of doing what you think it does, it starts eating away like acid, almost as if it's like been completely dried out, but the parts that still burn are still there. I really like that.
Mhm.
So some type of
Who
like
who had the battery
airborne.
dust idea? Was that in
Oh,
chat?
that's Janelle. Yeah.
Oh, Janelle, shouts out. That's sick. I love that.
Yeah. I love Janelle. She's an amazing person, right?
Of course, we
And
all do.
she loves playing stuff like like Mouse Ritter, or she backs Kickstarters that are like puppies playing stuff. But then when you're doing some like dungeon design stuff, her evil really comes through
Yeah,
sometimes,
there
and
you
it's
go.
so
Mhm.
wonderful.
It's always the folks you don't necessarily expect.
Mm.
Um, acid plus dust. What else is coming to mind for you here?
I mean, the obvious acid dust, acid dust kind of situation.
Hmm.
I do like I do, like I said, like some type of like airborne acid, or yeah, some like residue of dust that like will burn if you touch it, or um what this is kind of a hard one because really you have acid and you have dust.
So
um
here's something. I don't know if this is true or not. I think I heard it like on a Snapple cap or something years ago, but a substantial portion of household dust is actually shed skin.
yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, okay, what if we've got like, dust of like shed, like you know, corroded. I don't know, you can't corrode skin, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, I got it. I really love the one that Janelle just did. Like a bowl of, it would probably be like chalk, like something that you can use to like climb
ooh,
something.
yeah.
But like as you get sweaty, like it interacts, or some type of like, even using that concept of just like some type of like powdered material that you're not sure what it is, but if you use it and then start to sweat or get wet, it triggers.
Oh, I like it. Like a
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
reactive, like acidic
Acidic
dust.
dust. Yeah. That's a
And
great
I've got
one.
like
That's a really,
pulverized
really
armor
good one.
dust here,
Mm.
pulverized, iron dust, whatever. And then take us
Um
home because patina was your
God, how do you
material.
patina a ghost or a specter? I feel like that's like one of the hardest combos on here, because you have like a physical thing, like an actual physical thing with like an incorporeal thing. Yeah, it could be a patina tinged aura around a specter or a ghost, as opposed to like, my mind automatically always goes to like some type of like pink aura around a specter. I think that's what they do with a lot of the with like the monsters, but like a ghost that has kind of like a patina colored aura. Ooh, a ghost whose persona abilities change as long as it remains. You could have like a
Oh,
ghost
whatever it is.
that patinaed. I don't even know what it would be. Covered in patina. There you go. Skip the
Yeah.
AD. You could also have a ghost that is like their ability is like, as they touch things, it like
Oh
oxidizes it
yeah.
and like gives it like a patina thing. So like it could be like a kind of like almost like a Medusa area where you walk into some room that's got a bunch of like patinaed statues, and then you realize like it's some type of ghost that's touching things.
Love it. And I'm reading the def because I actually didn't know what patina was until you said it tonight.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah. I mean, I
Dude,
guess
it's like,
I've heard it like giving something the patina, like the metaphor, like giving it a
mm,
patina of, but I never actually looked at what it was literally.
oh yeah, but
And I
like
see it
that
often valued
green.
aesthetically.
Oh,
So I like
because
the idea.
that green blue color is seriously, it's one of my favorite colors ever. Like it's just such a, I don't know, something about the color just gets me.
So I'm thinking like, okay, you apply with a patina applied to it, and
Yeah.
there's a ghost that like likes the colors, and it's like, okay, I'll
Uh,
let you pass into my crypt, but you got to give
yeah.
me like you got to make something a patina.
I'll show this for chat in case for those that are going to watch this on YouTube. Like this is kind of like the patina that I'm talking about. A lot of times you'll see patina is on old statues, especially outside, like, or I mean the Statue of fucking Liberty. Like she's
Oh yeah.
iron, but has been completely patinaed. I don't know if a lot of people don't realize that is she copper? Some type of like alloy, I think. But basically, that's what it is. It's metal that's outside. So a lot of times you'll see it like this, like on these, yeah, copper, on statues outside that are like green that have been out there for so long. It's because it's oxidized and turned into this like beautiful green blue color. That's just so good.
Also kind of adding here like a pole because I was reading like you
Ooh.
can create shapes and patterns like the poltergeist that only communicates through a patina on surfaces.
Oh my gosh. So like even as it like it's basically like insta corroding a surface to write on it.
Yeah. And I
That's
kind of put like
dope.
or be communicated with because again with a lot of these things too, like think about how these sorts of interactions can go both ways. Like okay, the poltergeist can be communicated. It can communicate through patina, or the players can only communicate with some kind of entity by applying a patina in a certain way,
Right.
um, which they may need to learn. You know, it could be part of a puzzle or something like that. So we've got a lot here. I mean, we're already what a page and a half of just ideas that we can come up with, or ideas that we have come up with that we can use in future episodes as the basis for rooms, for encounter like combat encounters, role playing things, traps, hazards, treasure. Um, yeah, how are you feeling about this after we just kind of went through a pretty quick.
I think it looks great. I mean, there's so much because you usually do 20 of these, but between the two primary words, the tomb and corrosion, and the verbs that go with it, and then kicking over to the materials, I mean, the combinations and the number of ideas that we've already like created and bounced off. I mean, I honestly think we have like more than enough to build any dungeon, and so many ideas, big and small, came from this. And I mean, we really have only been doing this for maybe like an hour and 15 minutes to really like putting these things down on paper. So this is a super easy, like quick way to create so many ideas.
Absolutely. And that's what a lot of the things that we'll talk about in this stream uh, are. They're essentially idea generation using a very lo-fi kind of procedural generation, right? Like we're going to be rolling on tables, combining things together um, to hopefully come up with ideas that you might not have come up with otherwise. You know, because especially when you've been doing it for a long time, or you just get a certain kind of tunnel vision where it's like, okay, I'm making a tomb adventure. Let me put like a mummy. Let
Mhm.
me do this and this, and it just I don't know. It's easy to sort of do the obvious thing and just stick to the paved path. But with this, especially with some of these like ashes plus water or like spider webs plus like hopefully you felt it as we were doing this. Like okay, at first you're like, how is this going to work? But then
Mhm.
you come up with what are often the most interesting elements of your module. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a bunch of ideas once we got past, the obvious stuff, when it starts to be like, oh yeah, that one for sure. You know what I mean? Like even just the ghost specter and patina, like, communicating through patina because of the specter, the acid dust, it's water reactive, the myconid spiders as opposed to just a spider with mushrooms on it, like some really cremated mushroom mermaids. We'll see if that one pops up. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the really really great ideas that come as you keep pushing forward, especially with like the weird combos. Like some of the ones that felt like really good, like curse and mental deterioration. That's such an easy combo, right? But like you
Right.
said, both like the ash and the water one, my immediate thought was like, fuck, this one is like, what do you even do? And that's almost one of the longest ones we have for the different number of ideas we got with it.
So let me share. I don't know if I have a link for it. I wanted to share a link about this is a form Wilhelm's law because this is something that I'll come back to. It's Kate Wilhelm's law, and she writes, okay, so her law is throw away your first three ideas. The first idea is probably low hanging fruit. And to give more context, Kate Wilhelm was talking about plot ideas primarily and coming up with something that readers wouldn't necessarily expect. So she writes here, the first idea you come up with for what your characters might do or what might happen in your story is probably low-hanging fruit any reader can figure out. Many readers might figure out your second idea, and fewer will come up with the third. But basically, by digging deeper and putting more creative thought into your idea generating and honing, your fourth idea may well be the one that is fresh enough to surprise readers. So again, we're kind of adapting it a little bit here as we do our ideation of like, okay, write down the obvious ones. Sometimes that may be the best idea, but as we've done here, you just keep refining, you keep coming up with, additional ways to combine these different materials together to come up with some things that I think are very novel. And that's an important thing for me because like I said, I've been writing freelance, RPG stuff for over 15 years now. I can't do the math in my head. I've been playing since I was in middle school, so that's like 25 years now. So it's hard for me to find things that
Right.
surprise me. And as a DM, my players are all experienced too. So it's very difficult to find things that surprise them, that keep them engaged. And not all of them are as sweet on the classics as I am. Like I said, put me in a
Right.
gray wall dungeon with a green slime. I'm happy. But my hope is that you feel like this has been a helpful exercise, and I hope
Yeah.
chat, because that's the thing is I really want people watching this. This isn't just a thing for you and I to indulge and be like, let's look how cool we are and how smart we are. It's more like, hey, let's
I
do
mean,
this
yeah, but
process right. Let's do this process in public where people can follow along and participate with the hopes. I'm hoping there are people who are like, yeah, I want to use this process for my next module.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's half the reason we're doing it. I mean, it's most of the reason we're doing it is to. This is as much a course as it is a fun exercise that we're going to be doing together, so that people can see this. Much like cyclic dungeon design. It's a really good tool, and I think a lot of people are seeking this kind of information right now. So as you said, I hope this is really educational, not just for me, because what's fun is that I basically am like guinea pig for this right now. It's right. Like
That's
the
right.
point of the stream is for you to kind of lead me through these exercises so that and again we've talked about a bunch of stuff, but we have never gone through the things that we're going to be doing. So each time, like, I might know the theme of each episode, but not the exercises we're doing. So I'm seeing them for the first time as if I was someone who's watching this and then also doing it their first time. And also having chat here is really really great, so they can ask questions and roll some dice and get some stuff too, because a lot of the great things that we came up with tonight was chat. So it's gonna be fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we got I think at least 11 more episodes planned every week to continue to do this. So this is this is going to be a fun, interesting thing that we have to look forward weekly every Tuesday. So
And I think with that, we're about done with the actual exercises for tonight. I know we've got a little bit more time. I'm curious, do you want to open it up? Well, do you have any questions? Does chat have any questions? I've got another, maybe 15 minutes to a half hour in me, since it's late where I'm at. But yeah, I don't know, what do you want to do next?
I mean, I think this is good. I think this is a good first episode. Janelle said maybe a quick recap of the points we hit tonight.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Great idea. Um, so what we've done tonight, and I'm looking at the verbs board here where we started, is come up with our dungeons theme. So we started off by picking two theme keywords that were, I don't want to say opposite, but that were different enough from each other that we were going to come up with some interesting combinations, which you just saw. We then created some verbs. So these are the actual things that the player characters will be able to do, or maybe the foundation for puzzles or combat encounters or traps or treasures. We came up with 6 for each, and we'll come back to these later in the series as we start to really dive into specifics. From there, we went to our materials. We made a list of, could be physical objects, creatures, environmental details, concepts, like curses. And we made a list for each of our theme keywords and then randomly paired them off, with the idea being that these random combinations would force us to come up with interesting ideas. Some of the combos made sense or made intuitive sense. And as you saw, some of the combos were a little unusual, and that forced us to come up with some what I think were really, really cool elements for our module. And again, the whole point of this is to just help you start to get an idea of what you want your module's unique vibe to be, what its angle is. And I talked a bit about, the promise of the premise, which is kind of the takeaway that I think is really important for tonight's episode, which is when you create your dungeon, the theme, the marketing, the back cover text, all the stuff that goes into promoting the module and communicating what it's about, that's a promise in many ways that for the DM and the players, they're going to have a certain kind of experience, they're going to do certain things, they're going to see certain things, and this helps you stay on track so that when you end up creating the elements of your module, you're in a better position to deliver on that promise. They go, okay, yeah, we've got the verbs, we've got the materials, we know that we're going to be hitting the notes that people expect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a great first episode. I think there's so much in such a short time that is going to, obviously clearly impact everything that we're going to do for the rest of this stream. And I'm really excited about the direction we're going. I think, as you said kind of multiple times throughout the stream, we're going to do some unexpected things because of the way that we put all this stuff together and move in unexpected ways. We're not going to do a tomb in the way that I think a lot of people are going to think about a tomb. And that's what's really exciting to me right now, is to be able to take everything that we've done in the weird ways we put it together and see what comes from the rest of this. So what's okay, go to the opening again. What's the plan for next week? What is our theme going to be for next Tuesday?
I'm glad you asked. So our next episode will be a unique mechanic, or what I sometimes just call a gimmick. So
Okay.
basically, and this is something that I like to do with my published modules, is come up with an interesting mechanic that's unique to the adventure. So for example, the sort of clue like card game in Tomb of Mercy, the Sacred Auguries, I think they were called, or in Necropolis of the Mailed Fist, where when you start the game, you have these two decks of cards. One represents your mother, the other represents your father, like different royal bloodlines. And depending on your random combo of mother and father, you get an ability, right? An inherited ability. It could also be something kind of like what you talked about earlier in the stream, Ryan, which is, okay, we have a corrosion themed dungeon. Maybe we have some sort of meta mechanic that is corrosion themed. Like, okay, the adventurers have a certain amount of time, or every 30 minutes of game time, there's some corrosion that happens, or there's I like tokens. It's like, okay, there's corrosion tokens they can get. Essentially just coming up with something that is unique to the adventure. Because the way I always frame it in my head is like, you say somebody like, "Oh, did you play Tomb of Mercy?" And the immediate thought is, "Oh, that's the one with the Clue game, right? Or that's the one with the the bloodlines." Or like in Chapel of Grief, my new one, there's this queen and her queen's guard, and the queen wears a veil, and then there's 4 characters. So there's the new queen, and then there's her sword, her torch, and her cross. And depending on which one of the Queen's Guard you are, you get different abilities and they interact in certain ways. So again, it's just something to reinforce the theme that we created in this episode, but also just add a little extra layer of, interesting interaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm excited for that one. It's gonna be interesting. On exactly how we're gonna piece that together, and how I only assume as we build to it might be tweaked as we go. But I'm excited. I'm excited for all the episodes. I'm gonna say that every week, so get used to that, chat out there. But yeah, and like I said, we're gonna be doing this every single week. The plan at some point, this is obviously gonna get to YouTube first. It's probably going to be a little while because Jason is our YouTube extraordinaire. He does all of our thumbnails. He does all the uploads. He does all of those kind of things. So I got to get him some resources. Got to get him some stuff. We got to build some thumbnails and figure out what's going on with that. But this will hit YouTube first, and then I'm going to sit down and get it to podcast as soon as I can, so that those that did miss it tonight are able to just listen. But that is a plan for Seance, is that we are going to be putting it up on our YouTube on the Adventure Archive. We'll be starting a podcast. For those that follow us, I do the weekly scroll every week with Hunter. But this will be a completely separate podcast for the Adventure Archive, where we're going to upload like all of our old APs and stuff. But this will also be a big feature on it. Will be this, design course here with the Dungeon Master, Sersa Victory. So that is what we have to look forward to. I don't think we want to preview like all of the themes, right? I think maybe just like week to week is probably best. What are your thoughts on that?
I like keeping it week to week. Let's keep people in suspense.
Yeah.
And I do have a couple things to plug, if you don't mind. But I want to
please
do. Anything that you wanted to let people know about?
So I mean, like I said, we are the Adventure Archive. What we've been doing most lately is the Weekly Scroll, which is a podcast that myself and Hunter are on. Jason's also on at times. Andy plays when we do our Weekly Scroll APs, our creator cuts. It is a mostly a game design review or game review podcast where we review games that have come out, but we're trying to expand that a little bit and start doing a little bit more supplement read throughs, a little bit more adventure things, where I think the direction of our creator cuts, that's when we have creators actually come on and run their games. We're actually going to start having more adventures too, where we might have a creator come on, chat with them for a little bit, and then have them run their new adventure. So that's a direction that could go. But that's the Weekly Scroll. But the Adventure Archive, we got a couple of things coming up. I think our next game, our actual AP, is going to be Cyborg, which recently physically hit everybody's hands. And then one day, at some point in the future, I will actually start running a stream again called Side Quests, where I'll be doing a lot of like one shots and short arcs of a lot of the games that we've gone over, or small short like rules light games, just to give people kind of intros into some things like Durf or God, any of the million things behind me, Tunnel Goons, Maze Raz, those kind of things. So that is my plans here on the Adventure Archive and our forward plans. You can find us on the adventurearchive.net, and then all the Weekly Scroll stuff I'll plug on the Weekly Scroll. So what do we got coming from you, Sersa?
All kinds of stuff. I sent you a link to my link tree. If you could post that in chat, that's the best way to see all the different things that I'm doing. Primarily, I am with Storytelling Collective. I have a number of online courses up there, including Dungeon Design Essentials Moments, Dungeon Design Essentials Treasure. I have some things related to writing Choose Your Own Adventure style books. I do have a course coming out very soon. I can't say exactly what it is, but if you join their mailing list, you'll be notified. I also have a number of things through Kobold Press, including Necropolis of the Mailed Fist, Tomb of Mercy, and something coming later this year. I also have a link to the roguelike. I'm a roguelike developer. And also, if you Google or search in YouTube, I did a presentation for Roguelike Celebration about choice design, which I think Ryan watched, and it was okay. Pretty good.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, absolutely.
And then on itch.io, which is a newer platform for me, I have Victory Basic, which was my mashup of sort of Dungeon World and OD&D, basic D&D. It was primarily a gift for a long time, but I've recently made it available. You can download the electronic version for free. And just last night, I made the hardcover available, which you can purchase at cost from Lulu. That's the 3 booklets. I also have Cyclic Dungeon Generation, which was a little ebook that Ryan helped me with that talks about something that we will discuss later in this stream, which is basically a generation algorithm I took from the work of Dr. Joris Dormans. He's a roguelike developer and games researcher, and it allows you to procedurally generate dungeons that feel similar to like Zelda or Dark Souls. Oh, what else? Trident Gamebooks, choose an adventure books for teens and tweens. Also, and then of course keep an eye on itch, because for Dungeon 23, I am doing a module every single month. I'm hoping to, and my January module will be available very soon.
Yeah. Very excited for all of that. I highly recommend Victor Basic. I mean, I have had both the original box set and the new complete hardback for quite a while because I'm special and I get to be friends with
Yeah.
Sersa Victory.
Ground
But
floor.
I can't tell you how much I highly recommend Victory Basic. It's one of the most fun games I've ever run. We did run a full dungeon layer with myself, with Bayless, who often does art and is on the Gilded Troll, and Hunter. Super fucking fun game. Like it's just a great like top to bottom way to run dungeons. I love the 2d6, mixed with the OD&D. Very highly recommend. Like you said, it's free on itch. Definitely go download it. It's definitely worth getting the hardback book for it. We do have a stream on the Adventure Archive on YouTube. I think it's about 4 sessions long, where we did a 0 session, and then I think 3 sessions after that, might be 4. And you can kind of see how it plays. I honestly, I can't wait to run that again. But yeah, like I said, I mean, Sersa is, kind of one of the I don't things, but you're a person. But like, when I was really starting to get tired of 5th edition and was like, there has to be something else, I think is right around the time that I found Acropolis of the Mailed Fist, where I was like, okay, this is 5th edition mechanics, but this is clearly not 5th edition, kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it was so different, and the themes in it were so fantastic. The tournament style was really great, and really started to steer me in a different direction. And then through, fate and what have you, I was able to actually, chat with Sersa, gave us a lot of resources and stuff for the original Necropolis of the Mailed Fist that we ran with our meetup group. We had like 24 people playing it on like 6 different tournament tables. It was super fun, and our friendship has developed since then, and it's been really fantastic. And that's kind of led us all to this stream. So one of the modules that a lot of the themes that we're talking about here years ago has got us to this point. So if that gives you any indicator on how, the staying power of a lot of these techniques. So but yeah, that's I think that's our stream. That's what we have with the Adventure Archive. That's what we got with Sersa. You can find us every Tuesday is the plan, at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Central. Each stream is going to be about 2.5 hours, I think. And that's it.
Perfect.
Do you got anything else, Sersa? Or are we or am I gonna chat too long and be really bad on my outro again?
I think we're good. I appreciate everybody who joined us live for the first episode, and I hope they all found it valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did already, and we got 11 more episodes to go. So that's it. That's us every week. The Adventure Archive on Twitch. Go check out Sersa. The link tree for all of his stuff is, linktree/Sersa Victory, SERSA VICTORY. And we will see you next week, same time. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.